Hi, I want to speak today about compassion. And I think compassion is used quite a bit in palliative care, in any kind of care. But I really feel like it's really important to understand a bit more about it. So I'm Rain Johnson, doing death care differently. And what I want to say about compassion is it's the ability to be able to stay in the room when there is suffering happening. And so when we look at death and dying, and with an open mind and heart, it will challenge us and encourage us to see death as a process, a transition, and a spiritual journey. And adopting this kind of attitude toward death can greatly assist you, the caregiver, in creating a peaceful and positive environment for the dying. And we need to know, when it comes to compassion, that it is inherent in our nature as human beings. We just have to uncover it. And true compassion, there's true compassion, and then there is distorted this and self-serving kind. So what I'm going to talk to you about are the different kinds of compassion that you might not think about, but if we can identify them, what we don't want to be doing. And so Judith Leaf, she wrote Making Friends with Death. She speaks about it so beautifully. So she talks about the pre-packaged compassion. So we arm ourselves with simplistic advice and ready-made strategies. So we already know it's a formula we have, and that's what we're going to rely on. And it might, we try to avoid any kind of discomfort and resort to that kind of prepackaged compassion, and avoid any vulnerability as well. Then there's the manipulative compassion. So we're so eager to help that we ignore the objections of our recipient. And they're often considered as bulldozers. You might have had a caregiver, or perhaps even a nurse or a doctor, kind of bulldoze their way in. And so with that, we kind of end up looking down on our recipient and trying to make them like us. So, and we just figure that, well, they should accept our help and really appreciate our help. But we don't realize that we really are being manipulative. Then there's the compassion credential. And that's where we gain the credential by making use of other people's misfortunes to bolster up our own personal identity. And we thrive on helping people. And what matters most is that our compassion is noticed and being attached to being a caregiver. So, and I feel like I've been that a lot of my life. It's like, yeah, I'm a caregiver. So, don't I deserve some credentials for that? But it's just unfair to those that we're looking after. And then there's the rush job compassion. So that's when we go faster and faster. And again, to avoid connecting and being close to someone, we maintain a barrier and keeping the person at a distance. So it takes time to tune in to the person and environment. It takes time to settle our mind. And by being this rush job, doing a rush job compassionate care, we limit our awareness and stifle our feelings and close off any possibility of openness. So, if we have a shift and that we're working or we seeing many clients, or even just one, and have something else that we want to attend to, we might just really try to rush seeing that person. And it's so unfair for everybody. Then there's the heavy-handed compassion. So that's when, being in the presence of a dying person, we try to create this solemn, heavy, kind of religious, spiritual atmosphere. Everything is hushed. The lights are down dim. There's like this certain kind of music playing. The TV is not on. And, everything is whispered, and you can't speak anything unless it's very profound. So with that, this kind of compassion, the atmosphere becomes so stifling, and we're taking ourselves way too serious. Anything but spontaneity or humor or foibles or flaws are seen as threats. And it's not helping. I heard this one person was saying they were looking after somebody, and one of the caregivers had come in and turned the TV down and told the children to be quiet. And the person that was in the bed who was dying, they said, absolutely not. They lived their lives with the TV on. They lived their lives with the children playing and dancing about. And that's how she wanted to die. So we have to be careful. It's so easy to think that, oh, it's got to be so quiet and everything hush hush. But, it's really up to the family, up to the dying person, of how they live their lives often. So compassion is a tricky thing. And if we cloak and protect ourselves, we don't expose ourselves to the discomfort. And this covers up our own natural compassion that's within us. So true compassion is like the sun. And I love this analogy, which the sun radiates effortlessly. It radiates its warmth. And the sun is already there. We just have to know how to remove the clouds that block us from seeing it, to remove the clouds from within us to be able to feel and express our compassion. And, the other thing is, we don't have to wait until we're perfect. Our actions could be still a little, tainted. It's just basically put ourselves in situations where we begin to learn our own style of compassion and the obstacles that come up for us personally. Pushing beyond the fear and extending ourselves even a little bit, making room for genuine compassion to take hold. Judith Leaf, that I referred to, who wrote that book, Making Friends with Death, she also says there's 3 major components to compassion. So there's awareness, friendliness, and openness. So first of all, we begin with awareness, and which is important to start to be clear about who we are, not who we wish to be, not who we hope to be, and not what others think we are. And then with the second, with the friendliness, it's an extension of the awareness. So as we become more and more honest with ourselves, more willing to drop the false identities, we feel a fresh sense of appreciation for who we are. And this warmth and acceptance of oneself flows out in an increased appreciation for others. And people feel it. There was one client, let me just finish this one. So the third one with the components of compassion is openness. So by cultivating both awareness and friendliness, we also begin to develop great openness. Then slowly the experience and identities that we took to be solid begin to crumble. And we are less caught in fixed views and more open to new perspectives. Our heart begins to open, making more room for compassion to peek through. So then our care becomes that less formulaic. So the care becomes, not so prepackaged that I was speaking to. And, I was going to tell you about this client that I had. I was really in a hurry to see her one time. And I had no idea, where she was at. She was in palliative care. And I went into her room, and standing at the foot of the bed was her son. And so I introduced myself, and then my client, his mother, was lying in bed and just moaning and groaning and going side to side and grinding her teeth. And the nurse had just been in to give her a breakthrough. So all I went up to, I just went and got right down in line with her and just spoke to her. And I just put the back of my hand on her face and just spoke her name and said that I was there, and just started to breathe my own regular breath. And in no time, she just quietened down and she relaxed. You know, maybe it was the breakthrough. Who knows, really? But it was pretty quick. I was also doing a contemplative practice called Tonglen for her, and which I'll speak to at some point. But her son said, wow, he says, you're more than a caregiver. And that's taught me right there, where if I can just, leave any agenda at the door when I go to see a client and just be vulnerable. It's like I was concerned for her. It's like, oh, she was not having a good time. And but what I did was just meet her suffering. I just was available and to be present with her. And sometimes it's not easy. Sometimes we're going to seek scenarios that are really, really tough. And we want to be prepared. So understanding a little bit more about what compassion is, the different kinds of compassion. And another time I'll speak about compassion is based on empathy. And it's really important to know the difference between empathy and sympathy. And also, there's a term used a lot called compassionate fatigue. And as one of my mentors, Frank Ostaseski, founder of Metta Institute, he says, there really is no such thing as compassionate fatigue, because compassion is boundless. It's endless. It's empathy that is, empathic distress is what happens because we don't know how to let go of the grief that we pick up from our clients, or the pain or the suffering. It's like understanding how to work with empathy. So that is going to be another talk. So again, Rain Johnson, doing death care differently. And please subscribe if you haven't already. And we'll see you shortly. And I'll be speaking about, I also want to be speaking about the difference between pain and suffering, as well as empathy.